All right, so the first thing we're going to look at here to help you with your homework is the money market. This is just sort of designed as a quick overview of both the supply and demand for money. Now, I know it's weird to think of demand for money, but let's take a look. When we talk about money demand, what we're talking about is having money physically in your possession, right? Holding on to money. And so one of the things that we want to ask is, why would you want to have money in hand, right? What do you need it for, right? Why do you have money in your pocket? You have money in your pocket to buy things, right? So we need to ask things like, what would cause you to have more money in your pocket today than maybe we were carrying around yesterday? You need to buy more things today, or things are more expensive, right? And so we hold money so that we can buy things. But we also need to think about what else could you do with your money, right? You could also save your money, right? Remember, we have that idea that we can either spend money or save money. Well, if we save money, right, what would make you interested in saving your money? In this case, maybe interest rates, right? You get paid by the bank to hold your money in the bank. So how would that affect your decision to hold money, right? One of the things that we're going to talk about in this is this idea of short-term versus long-term interest rates. Intuitively, there's a general result. The higher the short-term interest rate, the higher the opportunity cost of holding money. The lower the short-term interest rate, the lower the opportunity cost of money, right? What are you giving up by holding this money? Lower interest rate means you're not giving up as much, right? And we generally only consider the short term because we demand money to make purchases in the short term. So the opportunity cost of holding money is the short-term interest rate. And this is reflected in the money demand graph, right? Here we've got this nice downward slope, right? The reason we have this downward slope is that when the interest rate rises, right, so when we're up here, the opportunity cost of holding money rises. So the quantity of money demanded, right, will fall, right? You're going to hold less money in your pocket physically if the interest rate is higher, because that's what you could be earning if you decided to save it. Now notice here we're working with the nominal interest rate, right? In the short run, right, in a short period of time, there's really no worry about inflation. There's virtually no inflation in the short run. So the nominal interest rate is equal to the real interest rate. Make sure you kind of know that idea here, because that's what you're going to put on the AP exam, right? On the AP exam, if you label it as the real interest rate, you would actually maybe not earn the point for the free response. So in the short run, the nominal interest rate is what we care about, since again, there's virtually no inflation. But again, you should be familiar with the shape of this graph because, right, at higher interest rates, we will hold less money. We'll demand to hold less money. So we're down here on the graph. As that interest rate lowers, right, there's no reason to put it in the bank. There's no reason to forego holding on to the money. So we'll demand more money at lower interest rates. Now, just like we've seen with our other curves before, right, we can shift this curve, right? We can have shifts of the money demand curve, right? Anything that changes the aggregate, anytime there's a change in the aggregate price level, right? If everything else is equal, higher prices increase the demand for money. So we would see a rightward shift of the money demand curve. Lower prices, right? If aggregate prices are lower, we wouldn't need to hold on to as much money. So we would see a leftward shift of the money demand curve, right? And this is, demand for money is directly proportional to the price. So if aggregate prices go up 20%, the quantity of money demanded at any given interest rate would go up exactly the same amount, 20%, right? It would match the rise in aggregate price level. And that's simple, because if the price of everything rises by 20%, it takes 20% more money to buy the same basket of goods and services. Now, second thing we're going to talk about, changes in real GDP, right? If the economy gets stronger, real incomes, real GDP rises. The larger the quantity of goods and services we buy, the larger the quantity of money we will want to hold at any given interest rate. So an increase in real GDP, an increase in the total quantity of goods and services produced and sold in the economy shifts the money demand curve to the right. So as GDP increases, so does money demand. All right, changes in technology. This is a little bit of an interesting concept here with the money demand curve. Changes in technology can affect the demand for money. And there's two things that play here. One, it's advances in information technology. They tended to reduce the demand for money right? By making it easier to make purchases without having to hold on to specific sums of money. All right, think about it this way, right? Most places now accept credit cards and debit cards, right? So if I have a debit card, I can make a payment without having to physically hold on to money. All right, so changes in information technology make it easier for us to pay, online purchases, things like that. We don't need to hold on to physical money. So changes in advances in technology reduce the demand for money, shift the curve to the left. So as we get better payment technology, better processing technology, ability to purchase online, we don't have to hold significant sums of cash, of currency, of hard money. Right? Think about it this way: if there was an ATM, right, on every corner and in most stores, you wouldn't need to carry around a lot of cash because you could easily get to cash to make those purchases if you needed to. Last thing, changes in institutions. Regulations that maybe make it more attractive to keep your money back, higher interest rates or more stability in the banking system would reduce the demand for money. You would get a better return by holding it. So if there are regulations that make it more attractive to keep money in your banks, will reduce demand for money. At the same time, if nations' banks were seen as unstable or volatile, right, you would rather hold on to your money. So you would hoard cash and money, and you would increase your demand for money. All right, so these are things that would shift the money demand curve. Now, we spent some time focusing here on the money demand. What about money supply? Well, we'll get into this a little bit later, but for right now, we can talk about the money supply as fixed at any given point in time, right? It's determined by the Federal Reserve, right? It's a vertical one because it's independent of the interest rate, right? That means that at any given interest rate, the quantity of money supplied by the Federal Reserve doesn't change. So for right now, right, think about it just as a fixed vertical line. We'll get into some nuances with that a little bit later when we talk about Federal Reserve and things like that, but we'll talk about this a little later. For right now, think about the money supply as this fixed vertical line. All right, so hopefully this will help you with the first part of your homework here on the money supply over Thanksgiving break. So go ahead and you can do that part of the homework. Come back later, I'll have a video on the Federal Reserve.